am so excited to be here today to talk to you about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I suspect to many of you. The subject is global poverty and slavery, and the question is, what is the sustainable solution to end it for human justice? This quest for the answer for me began 7.5 years ago in Kibera. Kibera is the largest slum in all of Kenya. It's right outside of Nairobi, and it is where 500,000 people are said to live in the space of 1 square mile. You can imagine that. I took this photo when I was there, and this is a pretty typical scene. You see this young woman, actually more like a girl. She's 15 or 16 years old, most likely, and she has a child. Kibera is full of women that are AIDS positive, that are left to struggle on their own. While I was there, I had the opportunity to sit down with some women. They told me something that changed my life forever. They said that if we could just have jobs that would pay us $8 a day, we could thrive and provide basic essentials for ourselves and those we care for. I'm thinking, that's it? $8 a day? And as a business person, I'm thinking, that is so doable. And I started to imagine, what if business could be used as a force for good to provide opportunity for people in situations like this? So I began a quest to learn about this topic of poverty, slavery, injustice, and did whatever I could. And I'm going to share some of my research with you, and we're going to end on a very positive note of how we can all participate in sustainable change. Well, the global poverty number is at 750 million, according to the World Bank. 90% of that is in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Over a 26-year period, this graph shows you that poverty is essentially unchanged. It's gone down a little bit in South Asia, and it's gone up a little bit in sub-Saharan Africa. To put it in more personal terms, it's like having to work 2 full days, maybe 12-hour days, taking everything that you've earned to get one of these with soy. Now, as I researched jobs and business, I discovered that the fashion industry is a very large industry. There are over 100 million people today employed in this industry. And in South Asia, the average minimum wage is $1.90 a day, poverty level. And it's growing at a rate of 10% a year in South Asia, and India is the second largest exporter of fashion products. Bangladesh is home to 7,000 fashion and apparel factories. 30% of those are unregulated or illegal. In 2013, one of these factories collapsed and 1,100 people died. The thing about this, it was preventable. The owner of the factory was told the day before that there were cracks in the building and it wasn't safe and everybody should evacuate. He ignored the warning and told the people in the factory, the people that work there, if you don't go to work, you will lose your jobs. So the next day, they all went to work and the building collapsed. 1,100 people perished. Now, the aftermath was all over the news for a couple of weeks, and it was discovered that major brands like H&M and Gap were having their product made in this building, amongst other big names. They were unaware of this, which I understand, because it was an unregulated factory. They had no knowledge, and they were really upset about it, so they put together a coalition of other companies to assure building safety going forward, which is great. But they never addressed the minimum wage, and today it's still the same. Now, some of these people that are in this world of fashion, they can't live, most people can't, live on $1.90 a day. So what happens? They're very vulnerable. And they're easily tricked by the lie of a stranger who says, I got a better opportunity for you. And women, particularly young women, fall for this, only to be kidnapped and sold to the local brothel to be a prostitute with no way out. Slavery. Slavery is at an all-time high according to the Global Slavery Index, 45.8 million. 18 million of that number, or 40%, is in India alone. It is said that there's more money made in slavery today than Google and Starbucks make combined. So you can see there's a connection between slavery and poverty. In fact, slavery is largely a symptom of poverty. So if we're going to go after slavery and try to solve that, we've got to deal with the poverty. In India, families can't afford to live on $1.90, right? They do the unthinkable. Some families are selling their children into slavery. And in many cases, because girls aren't valued as much as boys, they are sold. So what do we do? What's being done? What do you hear about as the solution to poverty? What do we hear most? We hear aid is the solution. We need to help those people, right? They're hungry. We need to give them food. They need clothing. They need shelter, right? Absolutely, they need those things. And in emergency situations, that makes total sense. But from a long-term perspective, I'm not sure. In sub-Saharan Africa, $1 trillion of aid has been provided during the same 26-year period that we see on this graph. Sub-Saharan Africa, poverty has gone up with $1 trillion. No other region in the world gets that kind of aid. Jeffrey Sachs, a well-known professor at Columbia University, well-respected and an advisor of the UN, he says that we could end global poverty by year 2025 if only Americans would give more. I would love to have a conversation with Mr. Sachs and say, where is your logic? Poverty is getting worse. We're giving record numbers to the area of the world with the most poverty. And on top of that, America already gives significantly more than any other country. So I'm not getting it. The numbers just don't add up. Another side effect of aid, it's widely documented by Transparency International, is a lot of it ends up in corruption, in the hands of corrupt individuals. These two guys took $5 billion each and put it in their Swiss bank accounts. Another factor that is a more subtle, but I think is very important to consider. When we dump large quantity of food and clothing on a country, let's say shoes, what are we doing for the opportunity of the local shoemaker? Wouldn't it make more sense to help the local business grow and thrive? Another example of that is Haiti. Haiti used to grow and farm and harvest and grow all their own rice. Today, they don't grow any. Why? Because we donate so much rice to Haiti, there's no local market. Hard to compete with free, right? Let's make this more personal. Let's say that you have a really cool coffee shop, a bakery. It's going pretty well, you're working really hard. It's tough to run a business, right? And someone decides to open up a shop right next door to yours, but they decide to give everything away free. How'd you feel? Probably not too good. I would suggest that we're doing the same thing. When we dump products that could easily support the local business. So let's think about that. Another example that's really popular, that is what's called the Buy One, Give One program or model. You buy this great product, typically fashion related, and for every one that you buy, a donation of charity is given on your behalf. Feels good, sounds good, but I would suggest that that charity, when you give that food or those shoes or whatever it is to that region of the world that is in need, aren't we doing the same thing as just giving lots of product to places where the local business could potentially handle that? Another part of that is, what if that bag is made in the conventional fashion industry that pays the minimum wage of $1.90 a day? Aren't we in fact perpetuating the one thing that we want to stop? Poverty? I'm here to share some really good news. Okay? I know this has been heavy. Michael Porter, another well-known professor at Harvard, he has been studying social needs, poverty, and he has concluded that actually business has the greatest chance of solving most of our social issues. And businesses that incorporate a social value into their business are more competitive, have better brand differentiation. I totally support that, because for the last 5.5 years, we've been running our business and doing just that. So you remember the women in Kibera? Well, after a few years, I started a business that is providing great jobs in India, the most enslaved, impoverished country in the world. And we're working in 3 regions of India, and it's really cool to see the impact on lives. And we're delivering a high-quality product that's competitive and meets the needs of consumers. We have learned and proven that we do not have to compromise humans anymore to get what we want. One region that we are doing our work in is Sanagachi, Kolkata, India. Sanagachi is a region of Kolkata. It's known as the largest red light district in all of Asia, where 10,000 women work as prostitutes. Many of them were trafficked in at a young age of 10 years old. This picture was taken of me last month when I was there, and I'm looking down into Sanagachi, where all the brothels are. Directly behind me is where we have our work, and we're creating jobs for people. I want to tell you one story. There is a woman that grew up in Sanagachi. Her mother was a prostitute. She had to do her homework in the same room that her mother was serving clients, if you can imagine that. As she got older, the men started to pursue her, but luckily she escaped and eventually learned about the work that we're doing. And I can tell you today, she is thriving, and she's making enough money to provide for herself and her mother. Her mother and her are free of this injustice, and they're doing great. So here's what we can do. Here's how we all can participate in sustainable change. Here's something that you can identify with. If 25% of Americans shifted just $65 in their fashion spending to an ethical brand, and it's really easy to find these brands because they put humans before profits, and they're happy to tell you about how their pay structure works, and they're very transparent. And there are many brands that are coming on the scene every year. If we did this, 1 million lives would be changed. I believe Nelson Mandela said it best: as long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality exists in our world, none of us can truly rest. Thank you.